Welcome back to DissedMedia, a startup story, the podcast where I take you along our journey of starting DissedMedia from the ground up. You get to hear all about our challenges and accomplishments as we either grow DissedMedia or go bust. Either way, you're going to have a front row seat to hear it all. And along the way, we're going to have some special guests who share with us their wisdom and insights and what helped them along their startup journey to success. So get ready as we get into it and try to help those get better at what they do. Welcome back, everybody, to DissedMedia, a startup story, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes of starting DissedMedia from the ground up. And, we are a startup company, a company that, building our success as we go along. We've shared a lot about the journey of doing that. Some of the good things and the more challenging things at times of making this thing work. And, I'm always on the hunt for people who have experience with this. And, we do this podcast for a couple of reasons. One, for those people who are on their own adventure, on their own journey, helping them with information and insight, like we like to say, help you get better at what you do. Then there are those people who are thinking about being an entrepreneur, venturing out on their own, doing their own thing. Maybe you're a little timid, a little scared, totally understandable. And then there are the dreamers who one day, are want to do it, not sure how to put it together. I'm happy to say today that we have somebody who probably spans that entire universe from just getting started all the way to great success along the way. As somebody who has coached many startup people, has helped startup companies become who they are today, and has even done a little bit of funding on that. I would love to welcome to this episode, Mr. Vijay Rajendran. Vijay, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Ben, and thank you for that very generous introduction.
Well, I like to do a little bit of homework on the people who are taking their time to spend with us. And, you've got a lot in your background. It's amazing to me. I'll be honest with you. I'm humbled that you've taken some of your valuable time to spend with me to talk about some of the things that you've done, not only because it helps the people who engage in this podcast, but selfishly, it helps me get a little wiser.
Awesome. We're gonna workshop a few things then maybe today. Let's see how it goes.
That would be cool. But I always like to start with a little bit of background. You've been in this kind of startup entrepreneur world for quite a bit, and would love to know, what got you started, what got you interested, how did you make this break to build your credibility to where you are today?
I've been interested in startups and this idea of what's possible and creating new things since I was practically a teenager. And what happened when I was a college student in Boston in the late 90s and during the dot-com boom and bubble was I had the unique opportunity to work at a company that did venture leasing. In other words, at the time, if you wanted to launch your website, you needed to have a bunch of servers and put your site on that server, and then people would visit on the internet. And then, if it was successful, the server would crash, and then you'd need to buy more servers. But of course, servers are expensive, and people didn't have the money, and there was certainly no cloud or services or anything like that at the time. So
no Squarespace.
Yeah, we had to lease these to people, and then underwrite the credit of companies with no profits. How do you do that? And what an idea. And that was exciting to then look at all these different proposal pitches, applications from different companies, some of whom became household names. And the particular firm in question also got equity exposure through warrants. But that just really blew my mind and made me very excited about the possibility of, helping founders. And my career since then has basically been ultimately being of service to entrepreneurial leaders in one way, shape, or form. Along that journey, starting companies myself in e-commerce and in fintech, starting a venture studio or a place where new businesses could be incubated inside a global bank, and then working in venture capital myself, starting accelerators and incubators around the world, as well as creating the tools for portfolio founders that we had to be able to raise capital, to create great community for them, and also create connections to customers and things like that. And it was on that path that really led me to develop my coaching practice, and also the work that I do with a new venture builder called GAI Ventures.
So what is the new thing that you're working on now?
My new thing is a new type of venture builder, or also known as venture studio, which basically helps industry experts who are looking to leverage their domain expertise to build new vertical AI companies in financial services, commerce, as well as in enterprise productivity. And so we have a number of things we're incubating and supporting to get launched. And there it is about bringing together the people, the product, and the pipeline in terms of future sales to set those companies up for success right out of the gate.
What kinds of companies kind of fit the profile that are in, kind of aligned with that service?
Yeah. Well, it's really about people. There are some folks that are very thesis and idea driven in terms of what they decide to go create or incubate. And in our case, it's all about, exceptional talent and great leadership. My belief in why I coach and support and work with founders in the way I do is that I think the thing that's holding us back the most in this world is not, enough money. It's not, impressive technology. It is the quality of leadership that we have in our companies, in our communities, in our institutions, nationally or around the world. But at every level, what becomes possible is a question of what kind of leadership do we have. And so that's why even in the newest and smallest of new enterprises, it starts with a great leader, and that person needs to bring their expertise and a hunger to share that with the world and see that out in the wild. And we help them do that in as fast a way as possible.
It reminds me of a saying I remember hearing sometimes from management peers as I was making my way up, is it's not the what, but the how.
Yeah,
And
how is everything.
That is really, really kind of fun. There's that opportunity to kind of work with people, very ambitious people from the ground up and move them along. I think to that point, I as I'm sitting here, I'm like taking a pause, thinking about recent experiences I've had, or even people I've encountered that this opportunity to do something could be something really good if you could get out of your own way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is so much an inner game, we try and dimensionalize, new businesses, or, existing like entrepreneurial, businesses, and whether as startups or agencies or whatever, in terms of like, oh, well, this is the market and this is the product and here's the segment you're focused on. And this is like, our core service, and like what's going on internally, for the leadership, for your key people, that is so important to unlocking what's possible. And that's why, I think we sometimes need to get out of our own way. We sometimes need to lean forward at times when, there's voices in our back of our heads telling us not to do things. That's something really important that, makes us have to not just explore what is the textbook answer, but what is our own individual answer, which is really hard because only we can come up with that specific answer for ourselves.
I think, leadership studies and leadership management, they're was something I came across a little while ago. Kind of this breakdown of, if you think about from the early days of business, we kind of focused on IQ and almost trait leadership. Like if you are smart and you mirrored the actions of other great leaders, then you would be a great leader, which we kind of found out really isn't necessarily the case. And then we came up with EQ,
Yeah.
which is a lot about, being able to read the room and understand people and be empathetic, right? And then there's this other element called MQ or motivational quotient, which is something that is emerging a little bit more now. And it's not necessarily about whether or not you have the empathy, but whether or not you have the right drive and can persevere what you want and really kind of balancing, IQ, EQ, MQ at all times as a leader, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes as
I'm so glad you brought this up because
yeah,
there is a balance because we see people who skew highly in one or maybe two of those areas, but not in all three. And they hold themselves back. They hold their companies back. They can sometimes through their I mean, this is a story as old as as time, ego prompting bad decisions, or potentially, because of lack of empathy, people doing things that are ultimately dangerous for the business that they have stewardship over, or for themselves. So I think we're starting to see not just cautionary tales, but hopefully how these three things play a role in you being the best version of yourself, growing, of course, and setting up the people around you to be successful as well.
because of the environment, I would say that you work in, which, your fintech people in technology in general, can be really, really smart, but not always able to read the room very well. And sometimes, I've found in my own experience, that you have to not get so caught up in what is being said, or I should say, how it is being said, but listen through that to what is being said and try and, take apart the emotion out of how it's maybe being delivered, to, better be able to kind of work with things. And, I have to admit, I mean, even my own patience is sometimes not always great, especially when I, really want to get things done, very excited for things. But it is one of those things about being a leader that we always kind of have to try and remind ourselves of, is that not everybody's experience is your own, right? And we got to find ways to translate that to other people to bring, you know, help them understand where you are.
Not everyone's experience is your own, and not everyone's values are your own. Not everyone's emotions are in the same place, and not everyone's motivation is the same. So a great example is, I will have founders ask me like, "Hey, so this person on my team, they went away for the weekend, and they said, oh, I won't be reachable." And like, I need them to be reachable. And like, do they know that? Like, why do they need to be reachable? Should they be reachable? Like, what are your expectations, right? And so, it might be that you want to create a company where there are no boundaries, and we're always dialed in, and we're doing this 24/7 because we're living and breathing this problem, and it feels like it's a mission, or we're motivated to launch this critical thing at a breakneck speed, and that's shared explicitly as opposed to like contained individually in that of the founder or one of the other leaders of the company, which then they only communicate through outbursts of anger. And so when you talk about how things are being communicated, like this isn't like you showing up at your best. There also isn't like respectful candor that is delivered, where you're not saying what needs to be said, and you're not rising to the occasion to deliver in a way in which it will be heard. Right? Like the duty of someone to communicate something is to be understood, not to have an explosion of feelings.
As I think about this, it reminds me of something I heard from Gary Vaynerchuk when I was listening to a podcast of his one time. He said, as a founder and a business owner, no one else is going to care about your business like you do, because it's not their business. Like, when you own something, when you have ownership of it, you're always going to have just a little bit more drive and a little bit more desire. And it's not to say that other people on the team aren't driven or motivated or anything else. But at the end of the day, I think founders, they have more maybe skin in the game, more to lose, more at risk.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to, I have found, even in the experience of doing this, right? So I started DissedMedia with a board of advisors, and they're great. I'm not going to say anything bad about them. They're fantastic. But I will say, like, my passion for making this work is greater than theirs, and I don't blame them for that, of course, right? Now, part of being on the advisory board, I've given them, a stake of ownership in this. I think one thing that doesn't excite them, to be honest with you, is there's really not a whole lot of profit here to be had. And I think until we get to a point of value, that's going to be a tough thing. Like, how do you get people excited about something when there's not value there? And even though I have a vision, I see what it's becoming and what it can be. These are professionals who do well in life, and I'm really asking a big favor of even getting their time to focus on this, right? So
you're asking for an almost unreasonable commitment, at which point they
absolutely
need to either derive psychic value from doing it, or they have to love and believe in the mission and you in order to see it succeed.
Yeah, and it's tough, but I think one of the things, at least for me, when I think about it, is completely understand. If I was in their shoes, I would be the same way. It's kind of the way that I look at it. And so, I feel like part of my job is to generate that excitement and generate that desire to say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's what's going on. I mentioned that because you've got a lot of experience working with a lot of different companies and founders at different levels. And, when there's revenue and when there's profit, everybody's positive and happy. Recently, we went through a little bit of a downturn from investment capital, where people were holding on to cash because we weren't sure where things are going. And to some degree, it's still a little bit that way.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the headline numbers, it looks like things are fine. But in reality, 60% of all the capital deployed in 2025 went into just 7 companies, right? So if you look at the overall VC landscape and you think like, oh, wow, there's like hundreds of $billions to deploy. I'm like, yeah, sure it is, in like OpenAI and Anthropic and like, household name, AI companies. And then even below the surface of that, you still see the majority of the money that is invested is in AI. So let's say you're not an AI first or, AI oriented company. You might be doing something in another field. Like, it's just not the season for what you're doing. And then take a step back from that and you realize, oh, actually the data tells you the same or more money invested in fewer companies overall. So like as a company, your chances of raising money look drastically different based on, is it an AI or today crypto company, or is it, that you're competing at a particular stage with more companies for the same or dollars. So it is a very competitive landscape, and so what that that means is often a difficult and hard exercise in what you want to do with your business in the future.
As you mentioned that, I think about, when I started my professional career back in the mid '90s, Coca-Cola, big consumer product goods company, way before the social media, internet, things like we have today. And the internet was emerging, right? It was during the CompuServe AOL days, dial up kind of stuff. But back then, you saw capital investments in product companies, restaurants. Like there was this big boom of that kind of activity. And then, over the last couple years, it's really kind of tapered off. And yes, every once in a while you get a Celsius or an Olipop that has kind of broken through. But not a lot of people are excited in the consumer products world, for consumer product startups. And I don't know if that's because of the consolidation of ownership. And, when you think about trying to penetrate into the grocery shelves, it's challenging because there are so few distributors and there's so much shelf space and most of it's, capitalized by the big guys.
Yeah, my first startup was actually in the gourmet, food field, specifically focusing on specialty foods with a different, perhaps like country or ethnic or regional like cuisine theme. And we introduced that through a subscription box based on the hypothesis that, there are thousands of new products coming out of the specialty foods industry and fewer and fewer places for it to go. They hard to find in the enormous catalog of like most online, sellers like in Amazon. But, there has to be an opportunity for curation and things like that. So that was now 13 years ago. And yeah, like the distribution channels, to your point, have gotten tighter and more difficult to penetrate for new brands.
It is very tough. I was a couple episodes back, we had Jason Fishman on, and he does a lot of marketing for basically crowdfunding, right? So a lot of things with Regulation CF, Regulation D to, get to raise capital, right? To get people invested in, and he's talked about like, working with movie projects and working with restaurants and, tech companies, like kind of fascinating to me, the whole approach to raising funds, getting people excited about new ventures. When you think about fundraising, what are some of the myths that people have in their head around that? And, what are some truths that you can maybe expose to some people who are maybe thinking about going down that route?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is that people assume it is a matter of luck or serendipity and being in the right place at the right time, whereas it could actually be a process and a system that you follow. The second thing is that it's something that some people just have or they don't, or they're good at it, right? But much like sales, much like hiring, and much like a lot of things you might not have had to do before yourself, you will acquire the skill of fundraising if you do enough of it and understand how to connect and share what you're doing with others who then come to believe. And then I think another important myth to bust is that it's not about approaching people who to do you a favor or to kind of beg of them for money. And it is instead like a matter of building relationships, and those relationships with people who are your capital provider and partner in ultimately in the business because they have the vested stake in it are then like folks that want to have a relationship with you. And I think that's really important if you believe in the fourth aspect, which is particularly when it comes to angel investors and others, there's something that you're working on that they want to exist desperately in the world. And that's why people, back a project on Kickstarter. It's why, people come together and support a crowdfunding campaign. And it is why, angel investors write checks into companies working on problems that they care about before they even know like the product is finished, or that, customers are coming in droves to, be part of the story of this company.
Business is money, right? So a lot of it circulates around that. But, there's a lot of resource constraints that a startup can have, anything from money to people to talent to, breaking through to markets. When you think about the startups that you've worked with, maybe in the recent past, what are some of the resource opportunities or constraints that are holding people back from scaling the way they want to?
So I have a coaching practice I call Startup System, because Startup System comes down to three things: funding, sales, and people. Right? You have to have capital, you have to have customers, and you have to have talent in order to, or the capabilities in order to make everything just kind of work. And this feels like a real like trilemma for the typical founder, because it's a bit of like a chicken and an egg and a rooster, and like how am I, what comes first? And so you've got to like figure out this this combination thing. So it is, as you said, like money, but you can't fundraise. Ideally, you think you're going to fundraise, and I'm going to hire a bunch of people, and then we're going to like acquire customers. When in fact, it works in reverse. You have to, basically fulfill what is the definition of entrepreneurship, which is someone who starts something new with inadequate resources, right? And so that means you find someone who will be your customer if you build a thing. And then you get like help from people, you get a co-founder, or you, or support in some way. Like maybe there's a law firm that will offer credits to startups, or when it comes to those capabilities, you're getting free credits from a cloud provider or something like that, right? Like you're getting a few things going, so that then you can say, look at my traction. Isn't this impressive what I've done? And look how I prototyped this thing. That we're going to build a product on Kickstarter, or look how we've got the first customers in sales. Now angel investors come join the party, where the train is already moving and will leave the station. And that is the way in which you become successful. And so there are several coachable moments: fundraising, founder-led sales, and also like how you scale teams, how you have a difficult conversation with a co-founder, or you're managing people who are working on different things and you don't know what's going on. Those are all coachable moments, but they're about this combination of people, sales, and fundraising that are at the essence of the startup system, and what I like to work on. And the fundraising part, we talked about, like, you have to bust certain myths, but you also have to know what to do, and that means not just saying, here's a recipe for you to be successful. Then it is like how we really tailor it around, what you can do to be successful. So there are these constraints in these areas, but, I think back to my training as a human-centered designer, and that is like, we draw strength from our constraint. Our constraints point us in a direction to get started and take the first step. And that is really important for people to do, no matter how big or small or what shape their constraints are.
So in your experience with the various companies that you've seen, and I'm sure you've seen some take off and do great and others that did not, in consideration of all of that, right? And maybe even some you haven't been involved in, just that you've known and watched from the sidelines. What are a few things that you see that are consistent in success and in failure? And maybe I hate to say failure, because a lot of times it's not failure per se. It's just that it didn't scale as it was intended, and it just kind of fizzled out a little bit. And there's always things that you learn from those experiences. So hate to say it's failure per se. But what are the things that you notice that bring people up and then bring people down in those
Right.
startups?
Yeah. Startups are like, I think what Tolstoy said about families, all the happy ones have things like in common, and all the unhappy ones are unhappy for their own reasons. All right. Like, so if you look at the ones that are like working, it's easy. You can point it like, oh, they've got like a bunch of A players. Oh, they've got like, a lot of capital. Oh, the founder, this is not their first rodeo. They're doing this, for the second time. Or, the product just was launched at just like a really unique time where people were stuck at home, and so they wanted to like try doing this thing that would or scientific service that would bring them something they wanted, right? Like that sort of stuff, right? So people timing, experience, like all those things are like easy to point to. On the reason why things aren't working, there's like a list that I think CB Insight started publishing some years ago about reasons startups don't work. And these were like startup founders saying why something didn't work. And the number one reason was, they misunderstood market demand, right? And so what that means is they either didn't understand their customers deeply enough, or overestimated a particular niche, and they thought, oh, this is actually going to be a really big market, we're going to create a new category. And that it just so happens that they were too early. Not that they were wrong. Maybe like in 20 years that will be a huge thing, but they could be 2 or 20 or more years like ahead of their time, right? So the number one reason being like, a misunderstanding market need. And then behind that, there's a whole bunch of other things about, the technology wasn't ready, or, the capital market shifted, and, people aren't going to back companies anymore that do this thing because that was 5 years ago or 3 years ago. It's really like kind of remarkable. But I think there are many misconceptions. All the problems though with tech startups are not about technology; they're usually about people. And so what I find is, much like in all human relationships, the quality of communication that we have is a good predictor about whether or not that team will like function well. And if that team can function well, it turns out they ship product faster, they write investor updates, they align on what the priorities are, they hit their sales numbers with more regularity because people know, okay, we need to have this thing ready, and I said I was going to meet this person, and then we're going to like show them the demo. And the quality communication and the healthy communication that they have sets them up for success. Things can also like go wrong, and there could be other reasons why co-founders break up, and it happens a lot of the time. But just the breakup doesn't usually sink the company. It's the things that led up to the breakup that actually slow it down or prevent them from achieving their potential or success that they should have had. So again, all those like unique individual problems for why the company could not work, but usually the root of that problem can often lie in the quality of team communication for whether or not they're going to even be moving in the same direction at the right speed.
I hate to keep saying, oh, you got this background of experience, but you really do. Like, there's a lot of things that you've done over these many years in working with startups and coaching them, advising them, all of that. And you've put some of this into a book.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So the book, as you mentioned, is the funding framework, which is here. And the funding framework is particularly around my experience working over many years with founders, and also my own experience trying to raise money and fund, and also experience like coaching companies to like really put a point on what are the ways in which you can, as I alluded to before, employ a process that works for you so that you can be, someone who uses systems and not luck or serendipity to raise money. And so the four parts of the funding framework are, that you have great storytelling, that you bring customers or investors into the world of what your product does and how it helps, and that they want to believe, as I mentioned before, like many angel investors do, in what you're trying to build. The same applies for institutional or larger investors who might be VC firms or others, and them also needing to see your story and how it works. The second part after storytelling is organization. So a lot of people, they rush out, they get a bunch of meetings, they're like, oh no, I don't have this, I don't have that, what should I do? You need to have all your ducks in a row, because the organization you bring to fundraising is a great predictor of the rigor and an organization you bring to running your business. And so that's a really important step, and like I think we really want to have. The third part, which is around a third step of outreach, is very different from what most people think. They think, I just need to go and pitch. I need to pitch. I need to just talk, and I can tell people what we're doing. And that's a word we use, right? And everyone, watches TV shows like Shark Tank and gets a particular idea of what they think fundraising is like. And it's not
that very scripted pitch approach that they use there.
Yeah. And in fact, great fundraising is about outreach. And we say, then I saw you've invested in 5 different leading consumer brands over the last 6 years, and you're the perfect person to listen to what we want to do in the, functional beverages market, because we see that we have this great insight. And I can't wait to tell you about this story, but, so-and-so said that you were the right person to talk to, and they can't be wrong. So, this is very targeted, because it turns out there are already people in the world who believe in what you believe, and they're just waiting for you to walk into their life. And that is the same approach you would take for enterprise sales. I wouldn't walk up to you and say, hey, let me tell you about my product. And it's, the best thing for the tractor, tier 1 suppliers out there, and you're like, that's not what I do. I make paper products, right? And so outreach is so important. And so that you create conversations that build that relationship that I said was, one of the things that was behind that, that myth that many founders have of, just like asking for something and getting it. You want to create a relationship with founders. The fourth part is with investors. So the fourth part after outreach, fourth part is closing with confidence. And this is sometimes counterintuitive, because you might think that if I'm raising money and these people have said, okay, yes, I'm going to invest, and then, I set a date and then they wire the money and it shows up magic on my bank account. That's not how it really works. You have to aggressively project manage the closing of the company, sending updates, reminders about reminders, checking in with your law firm, with your bank, and until the last dollar arrives, that deal's not done. And so it is up to you to manage that, because I've seen people get to the finish line and not being able to cross because something went wrong. In some awful cases, a term sheet may be being pulled. Someone did get an update about something. A person was out of the country. All kinds of things have happened, and maybe a previous investor didn't sign something to confirm and accept that you're going to do a bridge round or something like that. So that's just like a tangible way in which, it's really important to aggressively manage the closing of your round. And so altogether, those are the steps of the funding framework. And no one sees that when they look at an article in TechCrunch or in the Wall Street Journal or something saying like, oh, wow, this company raised all that money, imagining people, just opened the door and handed them a check in return. In fact, there's this whole set of things that have to be done. And that's what, I talk about in the book.
I like how you've laid that out in that one thing almost builds upon another, taking all the way to ensuring that the capital, gets in the bank. I've had experience working with some folks who've, done startup companies, and sometimes there's always this Well, they said they'll give us more money when we need it, right? And then you get to the point where you need it, and it's like it kind of runs a little dry. So
I have had awkward conversations with entrepreneurs in my previous firm where my job working with the portfolio was to like help them raise downstream capital. And part of it might be like, oh, we're doing a bridge round or an extension. Like, will you guys come in? And I say like, no, we're not going to invest in this round, but maybe there's a way in which I can like help you get to the next stage, or something like that, right? So, missed expectations are where people can really sour in terms of relationships and feel like their business is not moving in the direction that it should.
So let me ask you this, because I'm curious what you think. So the reason that I started DissedMedia was, and it's kind of a funny little name because what I'm saying is that I'm not a journalist, right? But I am trained in business, and I see plenty of journalists write about business, and they don't really know much about that. So I figured, why not be a journalist? But I started DissedMedia because I'm really kind of pulling together over 30 years of consumer product goods experience. I have a PhD in business, concentration in industrial psychology, and I've been teaching for over 20 years in higher education. I'm also a person who loves building stuff, websites, and things like that. So kind of marrying all of this stuff together. And I love audio, love video, love, doing podcasting. And so this is just kind of a place where I get to play with all of that. And that is the resource background that I bring to it. But what I have seen in people who are of my age going into the second chapters of their career is that there's a lot of people who want to coach, want to consult, smart people, good people with great talent. But then they are in this space where they say, but how do I do that? Like, how do I build a following? How do I reach out on social media? I have no platform. Where can I get up to speed with all of that? And so part of what we're doing is helping people to reach more people. So we're developing a community here, a platform here of outreach, if you will, where we put valuable content for business people and push it out there. And so if you are a contributor to our publication, The Daily Pitch, you've got reach, right? You've got a voice. We can broadcast that voice out for you. The podcast helps to promote the publication. The publication promotes the podcast. In addition to that, I want to help people learn important things related to business that are help them get better at what they do. So we do that with content, but also through an online learning platform. The idea is to help people at multiple stages. When you're starting out and you're young and you don't have a lot of money, you're just looking for information and you're looking for the easiest things that you can get a hold of. And so we have a tier of learning that is free or very low cost. The next tier would be more organized classes, right? Where, you're getting a certificate. You're going through these classes are designed, again, 20 years of teaching experience, other academics that I know kind of putting courses together. And then at the highest tier, you're a business that needs consulting. You need a resource. You need somebody who's good with legal, with finance, with IT, whatever it is. And because you're kind of part of this community, we can plug you into those resources. So if you're a consultant, if you're somebody that helps businesses by being affiliated with us, we put out information about you. Hopefully that brings, you business, and we can, move people into your atmosphere, right? And the idea is to really kind of bring all of this together because, number one, I think education is going to go through a drastic evolution in the next several years. People don't like the cost. People don't like the model. AI is going to do a lot better job than a lot of professors. And people don't, they haven't stopped wanting to learn. I just don't think they like the product. I don't think they like the way that it's being delivered. And I don't think they feel like it's worth it, right? The value proposition is diminishing, right? And so I'm trying to build something that kind of capitalizes on all of this shift in desire to educate, this opening new chapters, people wanting to get into different phases of business. And I think that what contributes to some of this as well, the great wealth redistribution that is underway, is going to make people who are late millennial to Gen Z retire earlier, which is going to prompt them to want to do something different than the work they've been doing the last 20 years. And I think that's going to accelerate even more. So I think there's going to be a big audience of people looking to do things differently. They're going to have the room to do that. And, I'm trying to build a space where all of that comes together.
So bring all that together. I help X accomplish Y by doing or through Z.
So the tagline that I repeat all the time, it's even on on our website, helping managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what they do. It's a little bit broad, but it's a little purposely broad because better at what you do really is kind of defined by you. You want better leadership skills, better finance skills, better sales skills, better marketing. The idea is to provide not just information, but experts related to that information that help you improve your knowledge. So
and there's a third part, right? Better what they do by
engaging in our portfolio of both media and products, media products and services, right? So everything that you get on our website, absolutely free, right? You want to level up and learn more from an online course, then there's a nominal fee for that. You want to get aligned to an expert to give you consultative advice, then that's a higher kind of tier of access or service, if you will.
I would challenge you to pick one of your three ICPs. Could be managers, could be entrepreneurs, and then pick not everything, but maybe their number one thing. Pick their number one thing that is an anchor for everything else. Because once they trust you as a source of A, then B and C are a lot easier. And thirdly, to communicate in terms of their experience. Engaging in the portfolio, yes, that is that is true, but it's right from, the world's largest collection of managerial, content, or the tried and true practices of how to lead in the AI age, or something that seems both tangible, specific, and timely.
I'll be honest with you, and I would say that one of my biggest challenges is seeing this big, the big opportunity, especially like I said, around education. I think the model's broken. I think it needs to be better. The rapid expansion of AI is so changing that. And I can see platforms emerging that are going to be very AI driven, that you're going to be prompted to learn, kind of like the way Notebook LM turns things into a podcast that you can interact with. So much knowledge can be attained from just people being able to have that kind of interaction with stuff. As somebody who does data analytics and teaching, I look at the world where we're at right now and see where AI is today. I don't know what the things that I do today look like in 5 years?
No one knows.
It's so in the crosshairs
Mhm.
of the emerging technology, which is why I think that we need to pivot more into how do we turn our expertise into helpful information for others,
Mhm.
um, with the aid of AI and stuff. Like this is, and a little bit, this is a little bit of my pivot because my gosh, I just spent the last 2 days building a web app with Claude, and I was able to do in 2 days what would have like prior to that taken me like 2 months with a combination of YouTube videos and everything else.
Right.
Like,
So I think that's your answer is you're going to be a builder. Your expertise is like just the blueprint, right? You can put the building up yourself.
yeah, yeah, and it's just it is I don't know, exciting
That's
times
right.
to
Very exciting times.
be immersed in all of this stuff. I and by the way, thank you for some good questions to ponder and think about for myself. But I do want to ask you more related to your world and your sphere. Um, what are some things that you're working on right now that you're most excited about? You know, as they were going through this
Yeah,
development
I
cycle
think
that you
the
do.
biggest thing is, what are the companies that will be able to keep incubating through our venture builder? I think that inspires me every day. I work with a handful of founders and senior leaders inside the startup ecosystem, and seeing them have their impact is super exciting. And then, yeah, that to me is enough. And I enjoy and feel blessed to do that kind of work in service of folks that I think are trying to put a dent in the universe.
That is awesome. It's okay if you don't have an answer to this. I'm going to press you a little bit.
Mhm.
Is there any company that's doing something cool that you're really excited about that you're working with today? And not
Yeah.
to pick your favorite child, right?
Uh, I mean, there's several really interesting ones. Um, you know, I there, I don't want to spill the beans, but like there's one particular company that I think because I'd bring it up because you were talking about education earlier. They are using music to teach language through through an app. So instead of just like how we learn about language through seeing word construction, grammar, learn the vocabulary, try and memorize that. How we start learning and remembering things is like music, and if it's catchy, you can get it out of your head. And I think that is again a different product than in language in the way that perhaps we all grew up studying and learning languages. So because made me think of it. That particular company, which is called Lingo Tune, comes to mind, and they are launching their app in the beginning of November. So it is long awaited, and I think it's going to be really exciting.
Well, very cool. And this is coming out after November, so we'll uh, it's for those listening. It's November now. Go download the app.
Yeah, it's something everyone can try. Yeah.
But that's really cool. Like it's funny that you mentioned that. Like I'm sitting here thinking like all two beef patties, special sauce, lettuce cheese. Like I remember these, uh, just
Jingles and
jingles in
things
my
like that. Yeah.
head. To this day, I remember when I used to listen to radio back in the day. There was this learn a language
Mhm.
commercial, and it would
Mhm.
say, "Can you spell socks? SOCKS? Oh, you're speaking Spanish." Funny little things
Funny.
like that, but those things stick with you. Um, well, that is. I have to say, Vijay. Really, really cool stuff. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your incubator, your book, speaking engagements, things like
Yeah,
that?
you can find the funding framework wherever great books are sold online. You can also check out other stuff I'm writing about at Startup System Substack. So it's startupsystem.substack.com. My site is mystartupsystem.com, where I have information about some of the different things I'm working on.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. I learned a few things. I always love it when I do these, and I learn something, something that I can take back and kind of noodle on. And you asked me some really good questions there. It's funny. I shared this in a podcast episodes back that I went to a conference called VidFest here in Atlanta, and met this really great guy. And one of the things he asked me, and again, I've been building this thing, but really, as I've explained before, like I've built everything, the website, the learning platform, like, the podcast, do all the marketing. I'm a one-man band over here. And it's funny because, he turns to me and he goes, so what do you sell? And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, I've been so worried about building stuff. I've just completely lost focus on the fact we got to sell something and make money, at this as well. So, this is very much a labor of love and a passion, not necessarily on the front burner of making, revenue yet. But, with what you asked me, it's kind of like, yes, remember, this is still a business. It is still something you're trying to, turn into something. So I appreciate your.
I think in Y Combinator, the first challenge everyone has is like, go find someone to pay you $1,000 for what you've made, and then find someone who will, and now figure out how to make $10,000. Now go make $100,000. Now $1 million. Just keep adding zeros. That's it. It's really easy, Ben. Just keep adding zeros.
Well, that is awesome. So I'm gonna work on $100, and and we'll go from there.
Great.
No, but we're like I said, the audience is building. It continues to build, and right now we're not doing really much of anything to monetize that. We're really just more interested in content development, getting stuff out there, and the opportunity to engage with folks like you. This is great because we'll turn this into stuff, and we will put it through all of our channels and bring some exposure to the wonderful work that you're doing. So I appreciate your time. Well, everybody, thank you guys for tuning in to DissedMedia Startup Story. I appreciate you all checking this out. And next week, we're going to have another wonderful and exciting guest to add to the repertoire here. So be sure to check us out. Until then, have a good one, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to DissedMedia, A Startup Story. This podcast was produced and edited by Ben Olmos and is a production of DissedMedia Corporation. If you're interested in learning more about anything you heard on this episode, please reach out to us at podcast@dissedmedia.com. You can also get more information about this and other episodes or information about our guests by checking out dailypitch.news, our business and insights publication focused on helping managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what they do.